I was very fluent in Yiddish. And then I got to mingle with the other kids.
Yeah.
And little by little I lost my fluency, but I understand Yiddish very well. And I very much regret not having kept up with my fluency in Yiddish, because when I grew up and I started to think about Jewish writers like Sholem Aleichem,
Yeah.
I would have liked to read about them in the original, because I've read just about everything in Sholem Aleichem in English.
I know several writers.
It doesn't have the same. Well, again, I'm going to revert to a Yiddish term. The same tom. In other words, tom is the word flavor. Word for flavor. And the translation, no matter how good it is, doesn't have that same flavor that the original has.
I had to go to school to learn Yiddish. My grandma talked only English, and I loved her very much. Now, Russian I never learned. My mother and my Aunt Betty used to talk whenever they didn't want us to understand them. And I'm very sorry, because I would have loved to learn it.
Yeah.
And then I never learned, I learned a couple of words. But actually, I would have liked to be able to talk Russian.
Yeah, my parents were, well, they wanted me to have a bar mitzvah and so on and so forth, so I had to learn Jewish ways and Jewish history and parts of the Bible, especially the Old Testament. And usually it was done by not by a rabbi, but a teacher, period, a teacher. Now my particular teacher, I still remember him.
They used to call him Melamed.
Oh yeah, Malamed.
A Melamed teacher.
I still remember him. His name was Mr. Witty, W-I-T-T-Y. And he was a bit of a tyrant. But it would be very slow and very boring. And you know how it is with kids of that age. They get bored. So I got together with my friends and we started playing pranks on Mr. Witty. Now, he would turn around and so on. We'd throw a piece of chalk at him or something like that. He wouldn't know what the hell is going on. He decided that I am the ringleader, which I was. Which I was. I think he called me a 56th Street bum. That's what he did. Then one time, again, we're having a class, and Mr. Woody is walking around, and things are fairly quiet, and first thing you know, again, one of my friends, Leo Ginsberg, he slings a spitball at Mr. Woody, a spitball. He turns around, Mr. Woody turns around, doesn't know exactly what, and he continues. Another spitball, a third, and a fourth. And finally he's he's got him. So, now you don't forget you have about 5 desks, 3 rows of 5 desks. Leo was sitting in the back. Mr. Woody is in the front, his desk is in the front. He rushes towards Leo, and Leo gets on top of the desk, and they chase each other over the desks. All right. Finally, Mr. Woody corners Leo. And he starts to make a lunge at Leo. And Leo pulls out a gun. It's a water gun. And he points it at Mr. Woody. And he said, "Stick him up!" And as Mr. Whitty lunges for him, he gets a stream of water right into his face.
Funny.
In a sense, that was the kind of world that we were living in, I was living in. I knew gangsters. They had a lot of money, I had no money. I knew all of that. But again, it was a question of trying to grow up straight, and it was a hard thing to do. We didn't have a telephone until after World War II, for crying out loud.
We did. My mother got a
We
phone.
didn't have one.
I still remember the number. Jamaica 1011. There were no other numbers. There weren't enough phones to have, all these other numbers. Jamaica 1011. That was, it was more, she was more up to date, my mama. And she was a very bright lady, my mom. And when she got here, she said she wanted to go to work. And my dad said, "What do you mean go to work? What do you think? I can't make a living for you?" And that was it. She would have been a great business lady, my mother.
Yes, you would.
Well, you asked me what part of Russia my dad came from. At that time it was part of Russia. I think now it's part of Romania or Bessarabia. Because of persecution of the Jews. He hated the Tsar, and he didn't like Russians. He just didn't like Russians. And he was damned if he was going to become a soldier in the Russian army and defend the Tsar in Russia because of the way he was treated. He comes to the United States. He was a working man all his life, hard-working man. But he loved America for one reason. And that is
That's stupid.
that in America you can vote. And he never ever missed, I mean, as I say, he was a very hard-working man. He never ever missed a single opportunity to vote in an election. Never. And when World War II came along, and me and my brother, of course, were subject to the draft, he had no problem with us fighting for what I call Uncle Sam. No problem. My brother and me. And it's the same thing with some of his relatives. A couple of my cousins were in World War II. And he was subject to World War I draft, by the way, but the war ended before they could draft him.
Was there?
But he would have gone.
Put this way.
Let's put it this way. He was the finest American I ever knew.